Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. And in today's video, I'm going to be going over all 10 books that I read in the month of December. I had such a great reading month. I had so much fun reading these books and I loved so many of them. I do have some statistics to share on my ratings and how I read these books. So let me get right into those. I had 4 3-star reads, I had 1 4-star, 1 4.5-star, and 4 5-star reads, which is so crazy for me. I feel like I'm a pretty harsh rater and it takes a lot for me to rate a book 5 stars. And some of these, they just did it for me. I had 3 audiobooks and 7 of these were either physical or ebook. And those are all the statistics I have for the books that I read this month. Most of them are fantasy romance. I have a couple kind of historical fiction, historical fantasy, but most of them are fantasy romance. Let's just get right into the books that I actually read. The first book that I finished reading in December was Wisteria by Adalyn Grace. This is one of the books that I did listen to on audio, and unfortunately this book was just a little bit of a letdown for me. I absolutely loved Belladonna by Adalyn Grace, which is the first book in this Belladonna trilogy. This is the last book, and this one just really wasn't what I was hoping for. The first book in the Belladonna trilogy follows Signa, and you can definitely tell that the second book is a bridge between the first and this book because this book follows Signa's cousin Blythe and her story, and I thought that the beginning was very promising. There was a lot of banter, there was just a lot of chemistry between the two characters. However, as the story went on, it just sort of lost me. The ending and some of the choices that the author made toward the end just didn't really make sense to me as a reader. I really feel like this whole world could have been just a single book with just Belladonna. That was my favorite. And I know a lot of people did love this one, but I just feel like the conflict that was introduced towards the end of this book was so out of the blue, just didn't really make sense with everything that had happened in the first 2 books. And the characters' actions at the end of this book just really irritated me. But I did end up giving this book 3 stars. I probably would maybe do like a 2.75. The more I think about it, the more I just don't like it, which I think is very unfortunate with how much I loved the first book. But I just didn't really like some of the choices that were made in this book. The next book that I read in December was The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. This book was just so well done in my opinion. I really enjoyed the second chance romance, the childhood friends to lovers aspect of this book. Normally second chance romance is just not a trope that I enjoy. I just sometimes cannot get behind the reasoning that they broke up and the reasoning as to why they're getting back together. But in this one, you can really truly tell that the characters have progressed, they have bettered themselves, and that they are willing to retry this relationship out. I just think it was so well done. This book follows Eli and Georgia, and they are exes, and their best friend Adam is getting married, and they have to come together to basically save his wedding. Everything is going wrong. And so they have to spend a week together alone, which is something that they normally try to avoid. And I just think that there was so much longing in this book, and you can just really tell how much they cared for each other and how much they really loved each other. I just think that this was beautiful. I thought it was very well done. There were points at this when I wanted to cry, and I don't even really know why. It was just such a beautiful story, and I loved it. 5 stars from me. I will definitely maybe read some other books by this author. I think she has You with a View, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know how people feel about that. I guess I will have to read it and see how I feel about it, but we'll see. Maybe I'll read that one. The next book that I read in the month of December was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I absolutely loved this book. This was so intriguing from the very beginning. This book is really in an interview style format where it is Daisy Jones and the members of the Six recollecting on their time together and how they came to be and how they came to break up as a band during the 60s. And I just think that this was so interesting. I think that Taylor did a great job differentiating each character's narration and their story, especially because you are solely relying on how they remember this series of events and how they perceived them when there was so much going on at the time, so much partying, so many drugs. You really don't know who's telling the truth and if this is even correct. But it was so interesting nonetheless. I just think that this is something that was A little bit different, but still so easy to read, easy to digest, and it was just a very interesting story. I definitely had my opinions on what was going on. I need to read more reviews on this and see how other people feel about certain characters, because I definitely had my favorite characters. I don't know if people would agree with that. I just love Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. I read Carrie Soto is Back by Her and One True Loves, and both of those are also 5 stars. So I'm really wanting to read more of her books, more of her backlist, and I think she has another book called Atmosphere coming out next year, this year really, that I'm so excited to read. I probably will enjoy that too if I've enjoyed these so much. And of course, with Onyx Storm coming out in January, I had to do a reread of Fourth Wing. I did listen to this. My goal with rereading this was to really pick up on those subtle lines that were foreshadowing, and I was able to do that pretty successfully, I think. This book follows Violet as she is entering the Writer's Quadrant at Basgiath War College and bonding with and learning how to ride a dragon. And it is such a interesting and very easy to digest fantasy story if you are just getting into the fantasy genre. This book is so popular though. If you haven't read it, I feel like most people have read it at this point. I am currently listening to Iron Flame and I am struggling. I just really don't like the second one as much as the first one, and I'm hoping that Onyx Storm is better. I have high hopes, but I will definitely be doing a reading vlog of when that comes out. I'm so excited, but this was my 4-star read. It's a good time. What can I say? The next book in December that I read was Heartless Hunter. I feel like I have said a lot about this already in some of my other videos. This book follows a witch and a witch hunter, Rune and Gideon, and basically the whole book is just a cat and mouse of him trying to catch her and her trying to sneak around and free the witches that he is capturing. There's a lot of tension. There is a lot of back and forth, and it's just a very suspenseful but kind of a little bit predictable maybe. I just had a great time reading this. I was so immersed in the story. I was kept on my toes. It really just had me shocked. I mean, I was gasping. I was on the edge of my seat when reading this, and I just had such a great time. I don't want to talk too much about this because I feel like I have already said so much about it on this channel. It is in one of my reading vlogs, and then I also talked about a lot about this in my top 10 books of 2024. So if you want more of my thoughts, definitely go watch those, but this was just a great time. The next book that I read in December was a little bit of a miss for me. This was Lovely War by Julie Berry. I had heard a lot of good stuff about this, and I had really high hopes going into it, but I had to try to get into this book a few times, and I think just due to that, it really did kind of sway my opinion of this book. I tried reading it, just kind of like, I'm not really in the mood for this. Tried listening to it, got a little way, stopped. I think I restarted it and then stopped. And then this time I just picked up from where I left off and just went from there. And I was able to finish it this time, but I just think that there was something about this that was really hard for me to get into. I think the story was very sweet. It was a very beautiful story, but I just think that there was something about this that really I didn't connect with. This is a World War II story that is told from the points of view of Greek gods. It's a very interesting concept. It follows 2 different couples as each kind of Greek god is narrating a certain character. I think it was interesting at times. I thought it was very sweet, but I just really couldn't fully connect, and I don't know if it's maybe because it was told from the points of view of Greek gods where you're not reading from the characters' eyes and how they are perceiving I read the story around them. You're really just listening to these Greek gods kind of tell their story from it. And maybe that was the disconnect, I'm not sure. I did give this 3 stars. It's a good book. I will say it's a good book, but it just wasn't a book for me at this time. I couldn't rate it higher. The next book that I read is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This was actually a reread for me. I read this a few years ago and I had a pretty good time reading this. It was very easy. I read, I think, most of it in a day. This book is set in a dystopian world. My dad didn't know what that word meant. So this book is set in a dystopian world where you are following Mare, who is a red. Reds basically have no powers. They're just regular humans. And this world is run by Silvers, who are basically humans, but with a special power. So it can be controlling water, controlling fire, something along that lines. Mare discovers that she has powers, and this puts her into a very tricky situation. And she is tied up with a lot of royals. just kind of that whole realm that she is introduced to and trying to survive. This book was entertaining, but some of the characters, maybe it's because it's a YA book, some of the characters were just so, no thoughts. I don't think a single thought or reasoning ran through their head. And that was a little bit frustrating because sometimes I just wanted to take them and shake them and yell, "What are you doing?" But that's okay because it was still entertaining. It was still a good time. I do have the next book in this series on hold at the library, so maybe I'll enjoy that one. For now, I'm not really sure how I'll feel about the rest of the story. I did remember a lot of what happened. The ending was a little bit blurry, but it was okay. But this I would probably give 3 stars. It was just entertaining. It wasn't anything special in my opinion, but it was just a good time. We'll see if I enjoy the next one. Next up is a book that I read on Kindle Unlimited. I don't have the physical copy, and that was Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. It was just a really easy short story. I think it was around like 70 pages. I read it in like a day. It was entertaining. It was cute. I just love Ali Hazelwood's writing. I don't even really remember a lot of what happened in it. Just kind of gone. But anything Ali Hazelwood I enjoy. I just love her writing. I think she's funny. I just like her books. So I gave that 3 stars. I feel like I can't give it anything higher and it doesn't deserve anything lower. The next book that I read was Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series and I really enjoyed this. I did start this book in the beginning of the year, I think around February, and I got around 20% of the way in and just stopped. It was hard for me to connect with them in the beginning, and so I just really had a hard time getting into it, and so I stopped it and I decided to pick it up again and I could not put it down. It was so entertaining. This is a childhood friends to lovers where you are following Sloane, who is a ballerina, and Jasper, who is a hockey player. And Sloane is in the Chestnut Springs world, Sloane is most of the guys' cousins and Jasper is their friend. And so these 2 characters have really grown up together and really know each other so well. And Sloane is actually getting married in the beginning of this. And so on the day that she's supposed to get married, she decides that this is just not the life that she wants for herself. And so Jasper kind of takes her away, helps her discover what it is that she wants. And this book was just so sweet. I think that they truly know each other so well. I loved getting to see how well they really pick up on each other's tells and their ticks. It's so interesting, and just see how much they really love the other. And they've just been denying it for so long that they can't even tell that the other person reciprocates the feelings. And I think that it was so sweet getting to see them finally get to be together. It was just such a enjoyable story. I gave this 4.5 stars. Just because the beginning I stopped and started, it wasn't a 5-star for me for that reason, but I truly did have such a great time reading this. I loved the characters so much. Chestnut Springs is just such a comforting, the characters are funny. It made me laugh, like I was giggling. And I just had a great time reading this. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Read Chestnut Spring series if you haven't already. And furthering that point, I also read Reckless by Elsie Silver. This is the 4th book in the Chestnut Spring series, and guys, I have no words. This was perfect. This was beautiful, gorgeous, amazing. I loved this so much. This was easily a 5-star read for me. I just loved it. I had so many emotions when I was reading this. It was just such a perfect story. This book follows Winter, who is Summer from the first book's sister, and then Theo, who is Rhett from the first book, his like prodigy. Winter is a doctor and Theo is a bull rider, and Winter is known for being just like an ice queen. She's definitely a little bit snarky to everybody around her, and Theo is this golden retriever, very flirty, and he just knows how to play into her kind of rude comments sometimes and just banter with her. This book is an accidental pregnancy, but it was just so enjoyable getting to see these characters progress and really grow. I absolutely loved Theo and Winter together. I thought that they were perfect, and it was just so enjoyable to read about them. It was so good. I absolutely loved this. They live rent-free in my head. I just love them so much. Those are all the books that I read in December. I had such a great time, and I am so excited for all the books I'm going to read in January. Let me know what books you guys read in December and what's on your January TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!